Welcome everyone to Pausing Point. Pausing Point is something that we do periodically when we're doing listening and learning. Now we've listened to 3 stories so far. We listened to The Fisherman and His Wife. We also listened to The Emperor's New Clothes. And we also spent 2 days listening to Beauty and the Beast. So when we do a pausing point, before we go on to Tall Tales, we're just going to kind of review a few things that we were talking about. I'm going to just pause our music for a second here. I hope you did enjoy listening to The Principal's New Clothes too. The fun thing about fairy tales that we were listening to is sometimes there's fractured fairy tales where they kind of tell the same story, but sometimes they add a few things just to make them a little fun, a little more amusing, and sometimes up to date. Were you digging the little pause button that I drew over there like you're hitting the pause? I just thought that was a great idea. Thinking about Beauty and the Beast, I wanted you to think about this expression or this saying. And it says, don't judge a book by its cover. How can we apply that to Beauty and the Beast? Well, I found some books that are kind of old and sort of beat up looking. If I was looking for books, I probably would want books that are a little more colorful. Like, that one's a pretty nice looking book. I think I'd grab that before I grab these old things. And what about this one? Oof. We Don't Eat Our Classmates. How can you resist? How could you possibly resist passing up that book? That looks like a lot of fun too. But just like Beast, now was Beast a really nice looking person or animal to look at? I think when Beauty saw Beast, he was kind of scary and she was afraid of him. So what does that have to do with don't judge a book by its cover? Think about that story. Was Beast really a bad person after all? It seems like he was kind of unlucky. Didn't he have some kind of a spell put on him? And so he kind of needed someone who would like him for who he is rather than how he looks. Let's check out this book. Is this a bad book? I don't want that, Mr. Paul. Well, actually, it's kind of a funny book. This book, they're making fun of sayings, and it's kind of strange. It says, Mommy says that she wants a horse with 16 hands. There's really strange pictures here. Mommy says that puppies should be paper trained. This person was being really clever. They drew pictures of expressions, and like this one is good too. Mommy says her nose is running. Well, you know, a running nose means that you need to blow your nose. But the illustrator drew a nose running, and the little girl's watching that. So actually, this is a pretty good book, even though it's not quite as snazzy looking as some of the others I have here. And this one doesn't look all that good, but when you open it up, when you see what's inside, what do we have? Well, a fun book. It looks like if you give a moose a muffin. So I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes an expression like you can't judge a book by its cover would apply to Beauty and the Beast. Or you could also say, like, don't jump to judgment or something like that. Like if you would have decided by the way Beast looked that he was bad, you would have been judging him too quickly. She needed to find some things out. Alrighty. I do have a little activity that I want you to do. You can, at home, you virtual folks, you could turn this into a drawing writing project, or you could tell someone at home. What I want you to do is choose one of the 3 stories. And I brought my beach ball to help me remember what I want you to do. I'm just looking at my beach ball. This says, who are the main characters? I want you to think about a character in one of those stories. Fisherman and the Wife, you had the fisherman, the wife, and the fish. Think about one character. Or Emperor's New Clothes, you had the emperor, you had the tricksters, and you had the other royal people and the common people. And didn't you have the little kid who actually said, hey, he doesn't have clothes on? Think about one of those characters. Or Beauty and the Beast. You had Beauty, Beast, the father, the sisters. So after you have one character, can you tell me what is the setting of that story? Where were we at with Fisherman's and the Wife? If you don't know, you could look at the video again and try to see where we're at, and maybe even when you thought these events happened. Probably the when is going to be long ago for all of those. And then the final thing, I'm wondering, like, now I said you could draw or write this. I think if you were thinking about one character, you could draw the character, or you could just write who the character is of the story. The setting, you could draw, are we at a castle? Are we out in the country? Or you could write about that. But then the last thing that I want to find out about is, I'm looking for it, what happened in the story? Could you write one simple sentence about what happened? Another fancy word for that is, what's the plot? What happened in that story? Like, for example, if I was interested in the boy in the Empress of New Clothes, maybe I'd draw the boy. It looked like he was in some kind of a medieval town. So, he didn't live in the castle. He was like a peasant. So he's just sort of living in the little crowded town. And what happened? Everyone was saying how wonderful the Emperor's new clothes was, but the boy, he believed his eyes rather than what he was hearing other people say, and he was the one who pointed out what happened. Now, you don't have to choose the boy. You have a lot of other characters that you could choose from. So remember, my virtuals, you could draw or you could talk about a character. You could draw the setting or write about it or talk about it. Same with the plot. Just tell me something that person did. It's really important when you read any stories that you know who's in the story and what happened. We have one other pausing point thing. I was going to give you like a little quiz. A quiz is a short test. And rather than doing any writing, I want this to be a thumb up, thumb down kind of quiz. I'm just going to get rid of my ball. It's in the way. Let me get my little quiz for you. Okay. Oof, I have to get that. Now I'm going to say, my good friends, if what I say is true and you agree with it, give me a thumb up. If what I say is false, give me a thumbs down. And you can do it while I do these stories. Are we ready to go? I'm ready. Here we go. Question 1. Do you agree with what I'm saying or do you disagree? Fairy tales are true stories. Is that something that's true or not so true? If you thought it was not true, can you think of any parts of fairy tales that you can tell are made up or magical? Number 2. All fairy tales are exactly the same. So if I read one fairy tale, that means you know what all the fairy tales are like. Do you agree with that or do you disagree? That's a good question. Number 3, fairy tales have royal characters, sometimes magical characters or events, and they often begin with the phrase, once upon a time, and they usually have happy endings. Does that sound like fairy tales that we know, or does it not? Do we have royal characters, sometimes magical characters? Do we often start with once upon a time and have happy endings? What do you think, true or false? Number 4, in the fairy tale, The Fisherman and the Wife, the fisherman catches just a regular fish and takes it home and has it for dinner. What do you think with that? True, false? Number 5, the fisherman does not like asking the magic fish for many wishes. Do you remember that story? Was he happy when he would go to the fish every time? Or was he kind of feeling bad? What do you say? Number 6. The emperor in the emperor's new clothes pretends to see the new clothes in order to appear clever or smart. Did the emperor or the king, did he pretend that he saw those clothes because he wanted to look like he was as smart as everyone else? What do you think? Number 7. Not a single person tells the emperor he's wearing only his underwear. Is that right? Did no one in that story point out to the emperor that he really just had just his t-shirt and shorts on? Was that right or is that wrong? Number 8. In the fairy tale Beauty and the Beast, Beauty's family loses its fortune. Fortune means money. And they also become penniless. They got nothing. Was that true or not so true? Do you remember? Last one, number 9. The beast's behavior is just as fearsome as his appearance. So the beast looks scary. Did he act scary too? Is that true or is that false? What do you think about those? Number 1, well, I'm not going to go through those answers for you. I don't think so. So what I think I'm going to do next, I just wanted you to think about those answers. I do have some riddles for you. Let's see if you can answer these riddles for me. Okay? Listen to this one. I'm a type of fiction with magical characters or magic, royalty, and happy endings. I usually begin with the phrase, once upon a time. What kind of fiction am I? Well, what are we just talking about? We're talking about what kind of tales? You know, fairy tales. Also, number 2, what character asked for too many wishes, and the flounder did not grant the last wish of that person and actually left them back in an old rundown hut? Do you remember who that character was? Was it the fisherman or the wife? What do you say? Who was it that found great pleasure, this is my 3rd question, in always wearing brand new clothing specially made for him? So who is kind of the show-off? What was that character? Was it the emperor? Was it a fisherman? Was it Beauty and the Beast? Which character liked to show off his clothes? Think about this character. This character would say, I took my father's place and went to live with the beast instead of him. Who was it who decided to live with the beast so the father didn't have to stay there? Do you know what her name was in the story? My next one, who was the character who caught a fish that was actually said he was an enchanted prince? Who caught that fish? See if you can get that. Now, think about this character. A meddlesome fairy put me and my palace under a magic spell, changing my appearance to teach people not to trust so easily in appearances. What character was that? Next one. We told the emperor we could make magic clothes that only clever people could see. Who are we? Do you remember who those people were? Can you tell someone? And the next one, final one. I told the emperor he wasn't wearing any clothes. Who am I? What character was that? See if you can answer those questions. If you're not sure, you could look at some of those old stories and see if there's one or two that you're not sure. You could check those out. Well, thank you for joining me for Pausing Point.